folks all the way in the back more or less hear me? Yay, hooray! Even folks who weren't in the back gave me a thumbs up. I appreciate that. That's very nice. Okay, cool. As you'll find out in a moment, I am a big accessibility nerd. So if at any point during this talk you can no longer hear me, or I'm talking too fast, just like throw something at me, or yell, or raise a hand, whatever. Okay, so as mentioned, I am Slattery. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm going to be talking about how to differentiate yourself using empathy. I know some folks are live tweeting these lightning talks. Thank you, you're amazing. My Twitter handle is Sublime March, and it's also on the bottom of all these slides. If you're a person who's on Mastodon, I'm also Sublime March at mastodon.social. It's better than Twitter, that's my stance for the day. I am the accessibility lead at Click Studios here in Chicago, and also a front-end engineer. And just so you're aware that I was once in your shoes if you're looking for your first dev job, I'm also a graduate of Dev Bootcamp Chicago. Rest in peace, Dev Bootcamp. Graduated about 4 years ago now. And why am I talking about this? Well, I have gotten every developer job I have ever had by demonstrating empathy. And this isn't a guess. Every boss I've had has told me some variation of this. It's true. Believe me. So I'm going to explain how to stand out by using empathy. But first of all, why is it important to stand out when you're looking for a dev job? And actually, to have a better sense of who's here, can you raise your hand for me if you are looking for a dev job right now? Okay, cool. And keep your hand up if it's like your first job in tech. Okay, yay, some of you, good enough. And if your hand's already down, unless you think your job is the best place ever in the world and you never want to leave, then this is helpful for you too. Or if you're somebody who is looking to hire people, this is something to keep in mind. Right. So why is it important to stand out when you're looking for a developer job? Well, first of all, potential employers remember who you are. If they're comparing you to similar candidates and you stand out for whatever reason, they remember you. And that's really important. When you're someone like me and you've looked through a stack of resumes, you want to remember who the heck these people are when you're looking at their names. If you've differentiated yourself, you've also shown that you have some kind of unique value proposition, and I swear that's the most businessy thing I'm going to say in this whole talk, don't worry. But what I mean by that is that you have something that's different about you that adds value in the mind of this potential employer. If no one else has that, and you have it because you stand out, that's added value. And last of all, standing out empowers you. What do I mean by that? Well, when you are looking for your developer job, regardless of how much of a hurry you're in, it can be daunting, and it can be scary, and it can feel awful when you get rejections or when you're staying up late filling out applications after work. If you can remember what makes you different from most other people who are looking for the same jobs, it will help encourage you. If you're at an event like this and you're networking, or you're talking to potential employers over coffee, if you can remember in your mind what makes you cooler and better than the other people that you're competing against, I hate to say it like that, but I mean you are, that's what jobs are, right? You're competing against people. If you can remember what makes you cooler and better, you will feel stronger and cooler. I guess I'm saying the word cooler a lot, whatever. Okay, so we care about differentiating ourselves. How do we do it? Well, one way, and all of these are good ways, by the way. You can differentiate yourself by doing awful things, but those won't get you a job. One of them is by having amazing skills compared to other people at your level. If you're a junior dev and you were like the most bomb, amazing person at CSS, that's a really good way to differentiate yourself. You can also have a unique background. Maybe, I don't know, before this you were a taxi driver or a teacher or you're a first-generation college student. You have some background that adds a unique perspective. That's a pretty good way to differentiate yourself. Maybe you have some really creative work. I don't know, maybe you've solved a really weird problem in an interesting way, or you've just done a really interesting code challenge that was just fun. I know there's a person in this room who made a really sweet video game when applying for a job, and that is an awesome way to differentiate yourself. Or you can just be cool and like have purple hair, or green hair, or like, I don't know, a cool skill, and people go, whoa, I remember that person, they had purple hair. That's worked for me. I'm not lying. So you have a lot of different ways you can stand out in a good way. My suggestion in this talk is that you do it by having empathy. What is empathy? I'm defining it as understanding what someone else is experiencing from their perspective, and ideally caring about it. This is my hot take. Care about other people. It will get you a job. tune in for more. Okay, so how do you differentiate yourself by having empathy? Well, by caring about different kinds of people. Now, it might be obvious, like the last one here, caring about inclusion. There are lots of us, if you're a marginalized person in tech, you don't want to have to be like, hey, here's my life story, here's how I'm marginalized, here's how people discriminate against me as a way to stand out. I'm not suggesting you do that, because it sucks. You don't want to do that. But that is an option. You can stand out by caring about being included. Other ways you can do that, by caring a lot about writing documentation, caring about the person who's going to look at your site or your app or whatever the thing is after you and understand it better. You care about a future user by writing the docs. You could also demonstrate empathy by caring a lot about users. And oh boy, companies love this. When you answer questions by saying, well, I think about when I'm writing code, who the end user will be and really why am I doing the work? Companies love that when you talk about that, right? Care about user experience, have empathy for a user. You can also demonstrate empathy by caring so much about writing maintainable, good, clear code. You're caring about the developer who comes after you and them having a lovely time looking at your code and improving it. You can also demonstrate this by sharing your knowledge, like giving a talk at a meetup, or writing a blog post, or just caring about working with fellow developers, or even mentoring people. It shows that you care about other people and them learning things. And there's so much more that you can demonstrate that you have empathy for. In my case, this was specifically digital accessibility. Accessibility being the design of products or services for people who experience disabilities and removing barriers. In my case, when I was a junior dev, I got the idea in my head that I cared a lot about fellow people with disabilities and decided I wanted to make the digital realm more accessible. I knew almost nothing about that when I was getting my first dev job, but I cared about it. And that was enough, as we'll see in a moment. Okay, so what happens when you demonstrate empathy by caring about something? Well, in an ideal world, when you go into an interview and you say, I care so much about accessibility, or I care so much about writing docs, or whatever the thing is, you'll find that that company also cares about it. And they'll like high five and hire you on the spot, and they'll be so happy because you care about the same thing. Wow, that probably won't happen, but it could, right? It means you'll have found your match and you will love one another and sunshine and rainbows. Okay. Worst case, you care a lot about a thing. Like, what's a good example? Pair programming. That can sometimes be like a divisive issue. Some people love it and some people hate it. And let's say you're a person that cares a ton about pair programming. You care a lot about working with other people, and so you talk about it and you spread the gospel of pairing. You might find that a company you're interviewing with hates it. They hate that thing you care about. They hate pair programming, and if you pair program or look at anybody else, you get fired. I don't know, whatever, right? I don't know. But you know what I mean. There might be a company who's like, oh, we don't really care about that. Everybody just kind of works by themselves, right? And this is actually a good thing. That company won't like you, probably, if you're really vocal about having empathy for a group that they don't care about. This is actually an excellent thing for you because you know that you don't want to work there. Because, oh my gosh, you would be miserable working at a company that hates the thing you love. Now, granted, there are lots of reasons, as was mentioned in the previous talk, why, I've been in the position where I just need any job. I don't care who these people are, right? But aside from that, it's not so bad to have that weekend. Realistically, what the bad case kind of is what I've labeled the medium case. You care a lot about a thing, you have empathy for a group of people, and the company that you're talking to is indifferent. They don't care, but they don't hate it. The really cool thing is you get to teach them about that. At previous employers, when I've been a digital accessibility nerd, I tell them all about it in interviews, and oh, I help run a meetup, and I write blog posts, and blah, 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 I care so much. And they go, oh, that's cool. We've never cared about that before, but okay. The really neat thing is they hire me, and I am now a solution to a problem they didn't know they had. I had worked at an employer where they ended up having a client get sued due to digital accessibility issues. And I was there! Hooray! Yay me, right? I got to teach them to care about a thing. And that's pretty cool. So it works out most of the time if you talk about the fact that you care about a thing. Okay, so I don't have much time, but how do you find the thing you care about? I've made the drastic leap of faith that if you're here, you care about something. Maybe that thing is you care about getting a job, or like you care about helping other developers, I don't know. But developers is a thing to care about. So if you're trying to think, what's my thing I can talk about that I have empathy for? Well, remember why you wanted to be a developer. As I mentioned before, for me, it was seeing awful websites that like didn't have enough color contrast, and they were frustrating to me because I knew people who couldn't use them. Okay? You can also find your people. Go to meetups, go on Twitter, go to conferences. And by talking to people that you just think are cool, and like, if they care about a thing, you'll probably end up caring about that thing, and pow, you'll care about a thing. Wow, amazing. You'll have empathy, you can talk about it. Also, just look inward. Think about yourself, think about what your values are, feely stuff like that, whatever, but you'll have a thing you care about that you can talk about. How do you showcase it? It's pretty easy. You write about it, you speak about it, you write code about it. In my case, I'm lucky with digital accessibility, that there is a lot of space in our industry right now that is not being filled. So I can give a lot of talks and write about it and write a lot of code, and wow, do people learn about what I'm saying, right? In other cases, like writing the docs, like we talked about before, or pair programming, write a blog post, give a lightning talk, talk about this thing you care about, people will see it. Like I mentioned, previous jobs I've given talks about accessibility, and there have been people in the audience who later hired me because they remember seeing my talk about having empathy for an ultimate end user, which is pretty cool, I think. So I guess my heartfelt message here is that caring about other people and having empathy, demonstrating you have that empathy, is a really great way to show potential employers that they should care about you. And that's so nice, right? My website is Slattery.com. I have a lot of resources up on there for folks who are looking for their first dev job, like conference talks and CSS and accessibility and all that junk. It's all up there. It's fun. You can read it later. Cool. Thank you for listening to me talk.